Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corman Productions, here to do another rewatch video of This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 15, titled Memphis. This is William's swan song episode. It's a Randall and William story through and through. Christy Metz, Justin Hartley, Mandy Moore, and Milo Ventimiglia do not appear in this episode. The original air date for this episode was February 21st, 2017, and the episode's description reads as follows. Randall and William take a road trip to Memphis, where Randall learns about William's past. Before going any further, I will tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free video, so if you haven't yet watched this episode, please go and check it out and then come back and watch my video. Secondly, if you like this video, please hit me up with a like, share, comment, and please subscribe to my channel. This is a very popular Season 1 episode, and it's beautifully done. But it's also an episode that I find kind of hard to talk about. There are certain scenes that don't inspire much in the way of commentary. Nevertheless, I will of course do my best. We open up with William's parents. William's dad is singing "You Are My Sunshine" to his mother's stomach. We cut to William's father in uniform, having either joined the service or already having been a part of it to start with, and now only recently being deployed. We once again hear him sing, "You Are My Sunshine," and this carries in to the next scene, where she hears a knock at the door, and we know what happens without being told. We just see her reaction. It's in a similar vein to an earlier episode this season, where we saw a montage of William meeting Laurel, falling in love, and an entire story plays out with no dialogue whatsoever. This isn't as good as that wasn't as good as when the Pixar film Up did it, but it is still very beautifully done. In the present day, Beth and Randall are consulting with a doctor. Randall wants to take William on a trip, but Beth is concerned that Randall is not up for it. He recently had a meltdown, a breakdown if you will. Beth says that it's basically only been 1 week since that took place. Randall insists that he's fine, and that he wants to take a trip with William to Memphis to see some of his old haunts, and maybe even meet some family. They are there to get the doctor's thoughts on the matter. And apparently, despite Beth's concerns, she doesn't believe he should go, the doctor sides with Randall. As we see Randall and Beth exit the doctor's office, and he gives William a little fist bump, and the old man smiles. We have a little montage of Beth and Randall preparing for the trip that Randall and William are about to undertake. We see William say goodbye to Tess, and you get the sense very early on that he knows he's not coming back from this trip, that this is it for him, that his goodbye to Tess is forever. She's barely awake, as it must be early in the morning. He's aware that he's saying goodbye forever, but Tess doesn't know that. We have a brief goodbye scene between Randall and Beth, who is still obviously concerned about the trip that Randall is undertaking. Beth kisses Randall, and Randall gets in the car, and Beth says to William to take care of him. And William says of course. And then she also tells William to take care of himself. William says to her that he will send her a postcard. And I think Beth thinks this is a joke, but later we will see differently. The two men take off. As they go down the road, William rolls down the window to smell freedom. Randall announces that they are going to do this old school, that they're just going to go by the map. And William is going to be his navigator. All he asks is that he stays ahead of him, that if there's a turn coming up, he announces it well beforehand. William asks for the map and then proceeds to toss it out the window. He tells him, "Just drive. We'll get there eventually." Well, that's one way to go, I suppose. And credits. When we come back, we see the two men driving. William is slowly humming, or quietly humming rather, "You Are My Sunshine." We go to the past timeline, where William is saying goodbye to his mother. She is going to Pittsburgh to take care of his grandmother, because she is not doing well. She tells him to take care of himself, to focus on his art, and to make sure that his cousin follows his lead and not the other way around. I'm not entirely sure that William ever quite lives up to that, but he says okay. She starts to cry and says that William is the best thing that ever happened to her, and William cuts her off and says, "Oh," almost embarrassed by the emotional display. And she says, okay, I'm not going to get emotional. And with that, she leaves him. Meanwhile, in the present day, the two are still driving. William spots a sign for the Peabody, and William says out loud that he hopes the ducks are still there. Apparently, he had a relative that used to work there, back when things were still segregated, and occasionally, his relative would sneak him in. The conversation eventually centers around Randall's breakdown. How William was surprised when Kevin brought him home. He thought that Randall was indestructible. He says that Randall seems to have it all together. And Randall replies, "Two together. Always been like that. Always putting pressure on myself. Ever since he was a little boy." And he mentions that his father kept it in check. That when it started going out of control, he would grab his face and calm him down. And we see Jack doing just that. And I'm pretty sure that this is not new footage that was taken for this episode, that we've seen this before. So I was actually wrong, by the way. Milo Ventimiglia does appear in this episode. William asks him what his father was like, and I'm a little surprised that this is the first time they've ever had this conversation. I figured William would have asked this question earlier, but whatever. Randall responds that he was larger than life, and that he had an amazing laugh. One that almost sounded like he was surprised that he could find something so funny. William asks where he's buried, and Randall responds that he was cremated, and that Kate has the ashes, but they spread some of it around his favorite park. William says he would like to go and pay his respects. And Randall responds, "Maybe next trip." Okay, Randall. I don't know if you've noticed the condition that your father has been in the last couple episodes, but there isn't going to be another trip. But of course, Randall is still kind of in denial about that. William, however, is not in denial. He realizes that there will be no other trips and insists that he take William to see his father so that he can pay his respects. He specifically instructs Randall to put the window down, turn up the music, and take him to see his father. And so we cut to a scene at the park. William tells him to give him a minute. He thanks Jack for doing what he couldn't, for raising Randall to be the man that he is. "I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you, brother. I would have liked to have heard that laugh. I would have liked to have met my son's father." William gets off the bench and goes to Randall and says, "I like him. He's the quiet type, doesn't really say much. Okay, I'm adding that last part. William did not actually say that. What William actually says is for Randall to pay his respects and to get back on the road. This leads into a montage of William corresponding with his mother via mail, the old-fashioned way, which eventually makes way for scenes with William and his musician cousin playing in the nightclubs. After the montage, we are in what I assume is the closed nightclub. William is off in a corner while the musicians talk amongst themselves. Eventually, William's cousin teases William about not partaking in some marijuana, which is a stark contrast to what William would eventually become. During a private conversation, William hands him a piece of paper, which apparently has song lyrics on, which is something that his cousin has been waiting for 2 years to get. We see his cousin practicing the song, and eventually it cuts to him singing the song in one of those nightclubs performances. The show is a big hit, and his cousin wants him to hang after hours with women and booze and whatever. But William wants to call it a night, not quite allowing himself to enjoy his success, or at least not finding enjoyment by his cousin's standards. He gets a call, which turns out to be from his mother. The news isn't good. We cut to the present timeline, where William is laying in bed, and Randall is making his, which William is asking him why, when someone else will do it. Because they're not living, they're staying in a hotel. But Randall doesn't want to leave making his bed to the maids. Eventually, after considerable effort from William, they get back on the road. They find themselves looking at William's old home, and William is fixated on the fact that one of the doors has been bricked over, whereas there used to be 2 doors, now there is only one. This leads to Randall saying that he used to have a bit of a fro, which is contradicted later in the series. I believe there's an episode where we see the time frame that Randall is talking about, just before Tess is born, and he does not have a fro during this time. He says that he was starting to make his way into adulthood, and things were starting to happen. So, he needed to take life a little bit more seriously, and he updated the look. Tess, who was 3 years old at the time, cried Basically, Tess was bawling when she saw Randall and his new look. And it wasn't because she didn't recognize him. It was because it was different. Kind of like William getting fixated on this door. It's a charming story, but once again, it's kind of contradicted in a 3rd season episode, I believe. William decides that he wants to go inside the house. And Randall's all like, yeah, okay, but there's probably people living in there. And William says, I want to see if my treasure is still in there. And Randall's like, what? And William proceeds inside, or to knock on the door. I mean, why not? He's dying, so what does he care at this point? And I could see myself doing something similar. The couple who currently own the house are more than willing to indulge William. And William goes straight for the fireplace and starts taking out a brick, which seems to alarm Randall and his guests. Well, actually, technically, Randall is the guest, but you know what I mean. Inside the brick is some toys and 3 quarters. And William expresses surprise that after all these years, they're still there. Randall seems to think that this exchange is odd. I, for one, don't. I perfectly understand exactly what William is saying and doing here. Maybe that's because I share or have a similar poetic mind as William. And William, just like that, leaves Randall holding the brick. Literally. In fact, I think that should be an updated expression. Like holding the bag, holding the brick. I think I'm going to try to get that to get into the national lexicon. I'll be a trendsetter. Or not. We see William eating at a place he used to eat at, and then getting a haircut at a barbershop he used to go to. And from my video that I did on the Black Barber Shop Coalition from the Confess Project, I learned that barbershops are an important experience for young black men. Regular listeners of mine, or watchers, will know that I support the Confess Barbershop Coalition. So, if you're interested, the link to support them is in the description of this video. We continue on this little montage of William showing Randall around until we get to the old bar where William's cousin still resides. And his cousin is not that happy to see him, because from his perspective, William abandoned him. He went to go take care of his mother, who was dying from, I believe, cancer. That seems to be the implication later. I don't know if we ever quite get the exact disease. William went to take care of his mother, and then he never came back. Randall keeps interjecting this tense family moment between the two relatives that were formerly close, trying to figure out exactly who he is in relationship to them, or rather, the cousin. And I'm no expert. In fact, I'm usually pretty terrible with these things. But yeah, I believe that William's cousin is Randall's second cousin. But I kind of wanted William to tell him to shut the heck up, which never really happened. This is the kind of goofy, dorky Randall that we don't see as much anymore in the later seasons. The cousin is not budging from his stance that he doesn't want to talk to William and wants him to go away until William reveals that he's dying. William is about to walk out of the bar when the cousin changes his tune. Did you see what I did there? I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. And the implication is, as we see in a montage, that while William was visiting with his dying mother, he got on the bus, the very bus where he met Laurel. And that is the reason he never actually came back, because he fell in love with Laurel, and along the way developed a serious drug problem, as well as creating new life in Randall. And we all know, unfortunately, how all that turned out. We cut to a scene with Randall meeting a bunch of his cousins, a bunch of new family that he never had before. He's excited about it and wickedly drunk. I'm kind of curious if Randall kept in touch with any of these new family members of his. To my knowledge, we never really hear about any of them again after this episode. He ends up talking to Beth via phone, and he's obviously drunk, and Beth is very happy about Randall discovering a bunch of his new family members, as well as the pictures of William playing with his old band. This scene, by the way, is an absolute joy to watch. It's just fun seeing Randall so enthusiastic about meeting new family members and watching William in his old element. The next morning, Randall is waking up and he's telling William that it's time to get up He let him sleep, but the ducks aren't going to wait for him. Well, maybe they will, Randall says. But when he goes into the room, William is clearly not doing very well. He's very sick. And Randall tells him that he will get him to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctors are saying that it's a miracle William was able to make the trip, because he's dying. And Randall says, they haven't made the trip. They haven't even seen the ducks. I'm honestly not sure if this is Randall making a joke here or what, but, it's just a weird comment under stress. William takes a breath, Randall takes a breath and says he can do this. He said he would do it, and he will. And he asks if William can fly, still completely missing the point. The doctor interrupts him and says that William is looking at hours, days, at best. And Randall, still very much in denial, asks him, what are you talking about? He's got like months left. And the doctor eventually has to be very firm and very clear. William is not leaving the hospital. He's going to die here. We cut to a scene with Randall at William's bedside. And he tells William that he spoke to the doctor. And he states, as a matter of fact, that William knew he wasn't coming home. He takes off the mask, despite Randall's objections, and says he has something for him. He tells him it's in his bag. It turns out to be a packet titled Poems for My Son. William says he was waiting for the right moment. Randall is clearly on the verge of tears. He says he's going to call Beth. He'll have the girls there hugging him in a matter of hours. But William doesn't want that. He said goodbye to them in the morning. He wants them to remember him standing over them and not looking at him as he lay dying. William says, that was a hell of a thing you did, knocking on my door that day, referencing the events that happened in the pilot. And William goes on to give him some advice. Roll down all your windows. Crank up the music. Grow out that fro. And maybe, just maybe, every once in a while, let someone else make his bed. And Randall laughs at that and says he likes making his bed. Then you make it, William says. You deserve it. You deserve the beautiful life that you made for yourself. My beautiful boy. My son. William goes on to say that he hasn't had a happy life. Bad breaks, bad choices. A life of almost and could-haves. Some would call it sad, but he doesn't. Because the two best things in his life was the person at the very beginning of his life and at the very end. And that, in William's mind, is a pretty good thing to be able to say. Randall's trying to rein in tears. And through a smile, he says, I think so too. Randall, or rather William, admits to being a little scared. His breathing is labored. And in response, William grabs a hold of his face, the way his father once did for him. Jack specifically. He makes the dying man be a little less scared. To go on to whatever is next. We see a montage of the life events of William. And then we see Randall driving home alone. On the dashboard is William's treasure that he got from the house. He has tears in his eyes. He cranks up the music, rolls down the windows, following his father's advice. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the episode. Absolutely fantastic. An absolutely fantastic episode of the series. Excellent final episode for William, though we, again, will see him. This is not the final appearance for this character, though it is the final time that we see him in the present day. Making a video about this episode was tough because there was no way that I could possibly do the episode justice. It's just beautifully, beautifully done. The next video I have planned is the Quantum Leap Season 1 episode, The Color of Truth, for my Quantum Leap fans. If there's any crossover between my This Is Us videos and my Quantum Leap videos, I kind of tend to doubt it. But next week will be a Quantum Leap rewatch video, followed by another This Is Us video. We only got 2 more episodes of this season before it is done, and then we can move on to Season 2. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Corman Productions, or Core Productions rather. You can join my 2 Facebook groups, the Corman Productions page, as well as the This Is Us discussion page. You can buy me a copy, which is a new way to support content creators such as myself. You can buy something from the Corman Productions store on Zazzle. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. This is Dave from Corman Productions, signing off.